Think for a second about your own relationship with pain. Like, if you were anything like, well, basically every other human being on the planet, you probably treat it as the ultimate enemy.
Oh, absolutely.
Right? Is that awful, intrusive thing we just want to numb or, to avoid or silence the absolute second it shows up. Like, you get a headache and you instantly reach for the pills.
Yeah, it's an automatic reaction.
Or you accidentally brush your hand against a hot pan and you just sprint to run it under cold water.
Yeah.
We are deeply conditioned, like right from childhood, to view pain as this direct adversary.
An invader, almost.
Exactly. An invader that serves absolutely no purpose other than to just make us miserable and ruin our day.
And, I mean, it is entirely natural to feel that way. Nobody actually wants to hurt, Our instincts are completely built around avoiding discomfort.
Right.
But our goal for today's deep dive is to completely flip your understanding of why things hurt. Based on some fascinating sources in modern pain science, we are going to explore a major, incredibly well-supported paradigm shift.
It's a huge shift.
Yeah. It really is. It challenges practically everything we thought we knew about the fundamental nature of physical suffering. We are moving away from viewing pain as just a simple gauge of damage and revealing it as something far more complex.
Okay, let's unpack this. Because the core premise we are looking at today is that pain is not just a straightforward measurement of how badly you are hurt.
No, not at all.
It's not this simple internal thermometer that just goes up the moment your tissue gets damaged. It is something far stranger and, honestly, a lot more fascinating than most of us realize. So pull up a chair with us. We are going to ask you to really rethink what your body is doing the next time you, stub your toe.
To get to that completely new understanding of how pain works, we first have to take a step back and look at why we have it at all.
Why we have it, yeah.
Because the value of pain, ironically, only becomes truly obvious the moment you try to imagine a life without it. We have to start by recognizing pain not as an enemy, but as an essential protective warning system.
Which, admittedly, sounds a little counterintuitive at first. Like, if you handed someone a magic wand and asked, hey, do you want to never feel pain again? A vast majority of people would jump at the chance.
I mean, it sounds like a superhero origin story, right?
Exactly. It sounds amazing.
Right.
But if you look at the medical reality, of the very rare condition where people are actually born unable to feel physical pain, it is not a superpower at all.
Not even slightly.
It is a life of constant, terrifying peril.
Yeah, for individuals with congenital insensitivity to pain, their daily life is fraught with severe dangers that you and I simply avoid by pure instinct.
Because we have the alarms.
Right, because they lack that biological alarm system. They don't get the warning when, say, a cup of coffee is scalding hot.
Oh.
So that leads to third-degree burns inside their mouths. They sustain minor cuts that turn into life-threatening infections purely because they never felt the skin break in the first place.
That is just wild to think about.
It gets worse. They will break bones and just keep walking on them, or they will completely destroy their joints from overuse, all because they never get that dull, aching signal telling them, hey, it's time to rest.
So it essentially becomes this tragic countdown. Without those warnings, people with this condition often face early death from unfelt injuries or runaway infections.
It's a very difficult reality.
Wishing for a life without pain is essentially like walking in your house, hearing the smoke detector blaring because the kitchen is on fire, and deciding to, rip the detector off the ceiling just because you hate that high-pitched sound.
That's a perfect analogy. The beep is annoying, yes, but a life without alarms is an incredibly dangerous one.
Yeah.
Pain is actually a guardian. It is your body urgently shouting, stop, protect this part, something is wrong.
And the alarm itself is incredibly unpleasant by design, right? If you could easily ignore it, it wouldn't be effective.
Right. Exactly. Its primary function is survival. But accepting that pain is a vital alarm system brings up a mechanical question. How does the body actually pull that fire alarm when you say, step on a piece of sharp glass?
Well, let's get into the actual wiring of the house. Because I think most of us, we assume the pain is just created right there in the foot.
Most people do. But to understand the wiring, we have to introduce the nervous system's specialized danger sensors. In the scientific literature, these are called nociceptors. 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 For anyone without a biology background, just think of nociceptors as incredibly specialized microscopic tripwires.
Tripwires, okay.
And they are scattered by the millions throughout your skin, your muscles, your joints, and even deeply embedded in your internal organs.
And they are just sitting there waiting to detect potential harm.
Exactly. They are meticulously calibrated to detect very specific types of extreme stimuli. Some nociceptors are looking exclusively for extreme thermal changes.
Like severe heat or freezing cold.
Right. Others are looking for mechanical threats, like a crushing pressure or the sharp slicing of a cut. And still others are sensitive to chemical changes,
Chemical changes. Like what?
like the inflammatory soup of chemicals that your immune system releases when a tissue is actually damaged.
Okay, so to trace the path, you step on a piece of glass.
Mm-hmm.
The mechanical nociceptor in the bottom of your foot gets physically triggered.
Yep.
It fires off an electrical signal that races up the nerve fibers in your leg, shoots into your spinal cord, and travels all the way up into your brain.
That's the path. And what's fascinating here is that the signal traveling up your leg is not pain.
Okay, I have to pause here because that completely breaks my brain a little bit. How can a signal warning about stepping on glass not be pain?
It is arguably the biggest misconception we hold about our own biology. We instinctively imagine that the pain itself is created in the foot.
Right.
And then it travels up the leg, into the spine, and into the head where we finally feel it. But biologically, that simply isn't true.
It's not.
No. What travels up that nerve pathway is purely a danger signal. It is raw, unfiltered data. It is an electrical message that basically says, hey, possible tissue damage happening down here.
Huh.
But that message on its own is not pain. The pain itself has not happened yet.
Oh, I see. I think of this like a sophisticated home security system.
Okay, go on.
The nociceptor in your foot is just a motion sensor. You step on the glass, the motion sensor detects something is out of the ordinary, and it sends a silent electronic alert to the security desk.
Yes.
But a flashing light on a security desk isn't a police response. It is just raw data. It is completely up to the security guard sitting at that desk to look at the monitors, evaluate the entire situation, and decide if an actual burglar is breaking in or if, like, a stray cat just wandered across the lawn.
That is spot on. And the most crucial part of that security system is what the guard does next. Because if the signal traveling up the leg isn't pain,
Yeah.
where and how does the hurt actually get made?
Here's where it gets really interesting. Because the pain is actively manufactured by the brain. It is not delivered directly from the injury like a package in the mail.
No, it's not.
Your brain is the security guard. It takes that raw danger signal coming from the foot, but it doesn't just automatically hit the panic button. Instead, it weighs that raw signal against a massive, incredibly complex multitude of other factors in real time.
The brain receives the danger signal and instantly cross-references it. It evaluates the surrounding context, like where are you right now and are you visually safe?
Right.
It consults your memories. Have you been injured exactly like this before? And what was the outcome? It even deeply factors in your current emotional state.
Like whether you're anxious or exhausted, relaxed, terrified.
Exactly. All of that matters.
So the brain is essentially doing complex calculus. It takes all of that context and decides exactly how much danger you are in. If the brain decides, yes, this is a legitimate threat and we need to force this human to protect this body part, it produces pain as a protective output, and it forces you to care about the foot.
Which means the hurt you feel in your foot is entirely, genuinely real. The agony is not a metaphor. It hurts.
Yeah, it definitely hurts.
But that feeling is constructed inside your brain and then neurologically projected onto your foot.
It is literally like an audio engineer sitting at a mixing board inside your skull, actively turning the volume of pain up or down based on the context of the situation, rather than just the physical damage itself.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, it sounds almost unbelievable at first glance. We are so culturally used to the idea that tissue damage equals pain on a strict 1-to-1 ratio.
Right. Big injury, big pain. Small injury, small pain.
But there are phenomenal real-world phenomena that absolutely prove the pain volume does not match the tissue damage. Think about soldiers in combat, or say a rugby player in the middle of a massive championship game.
Okay.
They sustain a terrible, gruesome injury, a broken bone, a deep laceration, and yet, in the heat of the moment, they report feeling absolutely zero pain.
Hold on, I need to push back on that for a second. Isn't that incredibly dangerous?
Yeah.
We just established that pain is a vital alarm system.
It is.
So if a rugby player breaks a leg, ignoring that damage and continuing to run on it could permanently destroy the limb. Why would evolution allow the brain to just mute a massive structural failure?
Because evolution prioritizes immediate survival over long-term tissue health. Under the old model, the idea that pain is just a direct measurement of damage. A broken leg should automatically equal a maximum pain signal.
Right.
But under the new model, it makes perfect sense. The brain is evaluating the context. In a combat situation, escaping or fighting for your life matters far more than stopping to nurse a wound.
Oh, look up.
Producing agonizing, immobilizing pain in that exact moment would actually decrease your chances of survival. So the brain, acting as that ultimate judge, simply turns the pain off. It says, we have a severe tissue injury, but producing pain right now is a liability. Keep running.
So the nociceptors are absolutely screaming. The danger signal is frantically traveling up the leg, but the brain intercepts it at the mixing board and says, not now. I am muting this track.
Exactly.
And they only feel the agony hours later once they are safe in the medical tent and the brain finally decides, okay, the survival threat has passed. Now it is time to force them to protect this leg so it can heal.
The brain decides when the pain is useful.
Which makes total sense for survival.
Yeah.
But then, explain the exact opposite to me. Why am I immobilized by a tiny paper cut while safely sitting at my desk?
The paper cut.
Yeah, the tissue damage is microscopic. It is totally trivial. Yet the pain is sharp, intense, and completely out of proportion to the threat. If survival mutes the big stuff, why does the brain dial the volume up to 11 for a tiny slit on my index finger?
It comes down to two major factors. First, nociceptor density. Our fingertips are how we explore the world, so they are packed with a staggeringly high concentration of these danger sensors.
Makes sense.
But more importantly, it is the brain's contextual assessment. Evolutionarily speaking, you use your hands for everything. Gathering food, using tools, defense. A cut on the hand is actually a big deal to your survival.
Okay.
Plus, there's no adrenaline. There's no life or death distraction when you are just opening an envelope at your desk. Your brain has nothing else to focus on.
So it fixates on it.
Right. It receives a cluster of danger signals from a highly sensitive area, realizes there is no immediate threat to distract from it, and cranks the pain volume way up to ensure you pay attention and don't get an infection.
Okay, so a lack of distraction amplifies it. But what happens if my internal state is already a mess?
What do you mean?
Say I'm having a terrible day. I am exhausted. I am stressed out of my mind at work. Maybe I am feeling anxious or depressed. I've noticed that if I stub my toe on a day like that, it hurts so much worse than if I did the exact same thing on a relaxing Saturday morning.
Oh, definitely. The exact same physical injury with the exact same amount of mechanical force on the toe will produce dramatically different levels of pain depending on your emotional state.
Really? Just from emotions?
Absolutely. When you are frightened, heavily stressed, or emotionally low, your nervous system is already operating on high alert. Your brain is already scanning the horizon for threats, pumping out stress hormones.
Like it's bracing for impact.
Precisely. So when that raw danger signal comes up from the stubbed toe, the brain is primed to interpret it as a major crisis. It overreacts.
Wow.
Conversely, if you are relaxed, laughing with friends, and feeling completely safe, your brain might interpret that same danger signal as a minor nuisance and generate very little pain output.
Which brings us to the phenomenon that completely shatters the old tissue damage role. Phantom limb pain. If someone has had a limb amputated, they often continue to feel vivid, severe pain in a hand or a foot that is no longer there.
Phantom limb pain is the definitive proof that pain is generated in the brain and not in the tissue.
Think about that for a second. The foot is gone. The nociceptors in the foot are sitting in a medical waste bin somewhere.
Right.
The nerves in the lower leg are gone. There is zero tissue damage happening in that foot because the foot does not physically exist. And yet, the person is experiencing genuine, debilitating agony in that exact non-existent spot.
It proves you don't even need the body part to feel the hurt. The pain is generated entirely in the brain's internal map of the body.
The internal map.
Yeah, the brain has a neurological representation of that leg. For various complex reasons following an amputation, often because the brain is confused by the sudden lack of normal sensory input from that area, it continues to construct a pain experience.
And it just projects it onto the mental map of where the leg used to be.
Exactly. It shows us that pain is a protective verdict rendered by the brain, and that verdict can happen entirely independently of what is actually going on in the physical tissues.
So what does this all mean? We have established that pain is a vital alarm system. We have established that the signal traveling up your nerves is just raw data, and that your brain acts as a mixing board, turning the volume of pain up, down, or completely off based on context, stress, and survival needs.
Right.
How does this massive shift in understanding actually help us? Where this really hits home is applying this new science to chronic pain.
Yes. Chronic pain is generally defined as pain that persists for months or even years, long after the original injury should have entirely healed.
Right.
And for a long time, the medical community's approach to chronic pain was, frankly, tragic.
Because the old model said pain always equals tissue damage. So if a patient came in complaining of severe back pain for 5 years, the doctors would immediately do an MRI. They would look for the torn muscle, the ruptured disc, the physical damage.
And when the scans inevitably showed nothing, when the tissues looked perfectly healed and normal patients were often met with terrible cruelty, they were deeply disbelieved. They were told that because there was no visible structural damage, the pain must be all in their head.
Which is such a damaging phrase. It implies they're making it up. It implies the suffering isn't real. But based on everything we have just discussed, we now know that all pain is in your head. Literally, because the brain constructs it.
Exactly.
But the experience of that pain is 100% real.
The new paradigm we are exploring today offers a much more accurate and compassionate picture. We now understand that the nervous system and the brain can essentially learn pain.
Learn pain.
Yes, this is the concept of neuroplasticity applied to suffering. When a person is in pain for a long time, the nerves that carry the danger signals physically adapt. They become hyper-efficient at their job.
Let's dig into how that actually happens mechanistically. Because it's not just a metaphor, right?
Yeah.
The nerves are physically changing.
Right. What actually happens is that the synapses, the tiny gaps between the nerves where signals are passed along, they adapt. They start releasing more chemical messengers.
Okay.
And the receiving nerves build more receptors to catch those messengers. It's like the brain is adding extra lanes to a highway so the danger signals can travel faster, louder, and with less resistance.
Wow.
The brain, constantly receiving these amplified signals, becomes sensitized. It becomes overly protective.
Think of it like a car alarm that gets stuck in the on position.
Yeah.
Initially, the car alarm went off because someone smashed the window. That was a legitimate threat. The alarm was doing its job.
Right.
But years later, the window is fixed, the thief is long gone, yet the alarm system has become so overly sensitive and degraded that a leaf blowing across the windshield or just a gentle gust of wind sets the alarm blaring at full volume.
The alarm system itself has become the problem. The pain is completely real. The agony that chronic pain sufferers feel is just as intense as acute injury pain. But it is being driven by a sensitized, overprotective warning system rather than by fresh tissue damage. The brain is misinterpreting safe signals like normal movement or a light touch, or even just emotional stress as massive bodily threats. And it is outputting massive amounts of pain in a misguided attempt to protect the person.
And this reframing is where the true hope lies. If we stop stubbornly chasing tissue damage that isn't there, we can actually change the way we treat chronic pain.
We can.
Treatments can now focus on retraining that overtuned nervous system. We can use physical therapy, cognitive strategies, and targeted medications to work on teaching the brain that the body is actually safe, slowly dialing down that overprotective alarm.
And it is absolutely vital that we include a gentle note here. If you or someone you know is struggling with persistent chronic pain, you need to know that it is a real treatable medical issue.
Yes, absolutely.
You are not making it up, and you do not have to soldier on alone. This new science means there are pain specialists out there who understand this complex mechanism and can help you navigate treatments that address the nervous system itself. Please reach out and talk to a doctor.
So let's bring this all together. We set out on a mission today to change how you look at physical suffering. We started with the universal desire to banish pain, only to realize that a life without that warning system is a life of extreme danger.
We trace the path of a danger signal, not a pain signal, but raw data up from the nociceptors in your tissue into the spinal cord and up to the brain.
We saw how the brain acts as the ultimate judge, weighing context, memory, and emotion to decide if pain is a necessary protective output.
And we looked at the undeniable proof, from soldiers ignoring broken legs to phantom limbs hurting in thin air, that the volume of our pain rarely matches the reality of our tissue damage. Pain is a genuine, albeit sometimes over-worried friend, trying its absolute best to keep us safe.
It is not a simple gauge of damage. It is a complex, constructed experience. And realizing that the alarm can get stuck gives us entirely new ways to help the millions of people living with chronic pain.
This raises an important question, though, one that flows naturally from everything we've just discussed about how the brain constructs our physical reality.
I have a feeling this is going to reframe things even further.
If our brains possess the incredible power to literally adjust the volume of our physical pain, to turn it off completely in a crisis, to crank it up when we are stressed or exhausted, to generate it entirely from memory in a phantom limb. How much untapped power do we have to change our physical reality just by changing our state of mind?
That is a staggering thought to leave on. If our emotional state and our perception of safety can fundamentally alter the neurological output of our bodies, we might have far more agency over our physical well-being than we ever dared to believe.
It's empowering.
It really is. It is something we highly encourage you to mull over the next time you feel an ache or a pang. Thank you for joining us at the table today, and as always, stay curious.